I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zoloft, Promax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac, Ultram, Zocor, Zipro, Prozac, dopamine, Demerol, Lexapro, Tylenol, Vicodin, Lyrica, Lipitor, and Adderall, but I don't do no drugs, man.
Hi everyone, we're back.
Yes.
Dr. Beard and Anna Allen. We're here for the second part of our root causes of weight issues, because there are several and unique to each person. At least that's what I've found over the years. Certainly everybody is different. And I think in the last one we went over some different root causes. Today we're going to be going over things like hormones, a deeper dive into gut health related issues, even talking about intermittent fasting, insulin resistance, and then just kind of some overall tools you want to have in your toolkit if you're struggling with these weight issues. So one of the first things on we always make notes. I have to. I'm not one of those.
I know.
Well, although if I don't, I ramble. So this is really just to keep me on track. But hormones, wow.
Yeah.
Huge topic. And there are several people out there that are hormone specialists for women and men that I think do a great job. And when it comes to hormones, it's especially those perimenopausal transition to menopause years, there's things that happen. I've noticed this. I'm almost 52, and I can tell you that I have gained a little bit of weight in my abdominal section that I have never had before. But I've also, this chronic sleep issue that I have going on from long haul COVID is probably at play there too. But many women, and I've talked to so many women who say the same thing. I woke up one day and had this belly pooch. And I get it. I mean, it's there is a definite transition stage for women and men too, but this is primarily about women, because women are the ones that are coming to me for weight issues. And there's a lot of things going on. Yes, there's a depletion of these hormones that occurs well before your periods even start to become irregular or stop. Most say it's around 10 years your progesterone levels are decreasing. Sometimes that is unnoticed. Some women go through this transition phase with minimal disruption. They're not having weight issues. They may have some hot flashes or some irritability. They do notice some things, but they tend to get through it, no problems. There are others who struggle greatly and notice that the weight simply is not falling off like it once did, and they're just gaining weight and haven't changed anything. So, and every woman is different, especially when it comes to do you want to use hormone, treatment, hormone replacement therapy. I know this has been something that has helped a lot of women, and I've seen it go terribly wrong for other women. Again, when it comes to hormones, particularly if you're going to dive into the area of bioidentical hormone replacement, which is the ones I would always go to. If I was going to use hormone replacement therapy, it would be the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Stay away from the synthetics. No, you do not need to be using estrogen from horse urine. Just don't. It's different. But I know that it's helped a lot of women, particularly just start to regain their resiliency. This internal stress feeling and anxiousness goes down. They sleep better. They have more energy, which then allows them, to work out like they want to. And that's when you start, because working out is moving your body is a big part of this. You need to move it. And a lot of women, when they're going through this phase of life, it's just not there. Apathy sets in. they don't feel like doing anything. They don't have the energy. Either they're just feeling fatigued, or they're not sleeping. And when you don't sleep well, you don't feel like doing anything. And when you're not sleeping, also it's causing effects on your endocrine system, your gut health, your ability to detoxify. So it's affecting a lot of systems that are going to make losing weight difficult and cause you to gain weight. So I think the hormonal component on sleep quality is a big one when it comes to weight gain for a lot of women. And then also it's just doing things to your insulin sensitivity. And so, when women come to me and they want to address their weight issues and they're in that age, they're 45, 55, their periods may be starting to get a little wonky, or they're like, I haven't had one in a year or two. What I feel most comfortable doing, and this is usually the path I take, is many of these women simply they're doing so many things wrong that are affecting hormone metabolism. Mm-hmm. So the production, what little that may be occurring, the transportation, the cell signaling, the detoxification, and the elimination of the hormones. That's all going to play a part in how your hormones are going to be, making you feel. And you have these doing the foundations, which I know we go on and on and on about, but it's imperative that you do this, because it's not just a temporary fix ever. It's something you're going to need to do for the rest of your life. And many women, once they think they're having they think everything's hormonal. Mm-hmm. And some of it probably is. But we don't know how much of it is until we clean up your life. So a lot of women are drinking Diet Colas still. I do not understand this. With all the information out there about how horrible these artificial sweeteners are, there are still people who are drinking Diet Colas. I had a man just recently gave them up, and he lost 8 pounds in 3 weeks by no longer drinking his two Diet Colas a day. That was just inflammation.
Right, and I think people are so quick to use the word hormonal for every symptom they're experiencing, because that's such a buzzword that we are hearing right now, and it catches your eye because you just think, I can fix my hormones, I can fix X, Y, Z. And while hormones probably are at play, hormones respond to other things in the body.
Besides hormone replacement.
Yes. And so, what are you doing that is triggering your hormones to become imbalanced, or not detoxify properly, or not metabolize properly? That's where you have to look. You can't just say, let me fix the hormones, which I think that's where
a lot of people go, straight to it. Mm-hmm. And I have seen, there's hormone clinics, and I'm like, they run some labs. Yeah, things are off. Mm-hmm. And then they go, well, we're just going to give you this hormone replacement to get your numbers back in line. And that is a terrible approach.
It's a very conventional approach to say.
It is a conventional.
Here are your numbers. They're low, obviously. If you're going through menopause, they're going to be depleted. It's natural. And then let's fix it with more hormones. If your hormones are back in range, then therefore your symptoms will be better. So it's that mindset of, this is low, take this, it's in range, all is well, instead of the approach of what else is going on. Why else?
Yeah. You can't just blame it all on menopause. Not from what I see.
Yeah.
Nobody is ever coming to me doing everything right. Mm-hmm. Not one person has ever come to me doing everything right and wanted to be placed on hormones. And then there's been times when I've been able to get women to start doing the things they need to be doing, and we've been able to even stop some of or significantly decrease what they were taking, and they feel just fine, or even better sometimes.
Yeah.
I've seen women who were placed on hormone therapy and you test their labs and it's like, you know, using like urine metabolites and it's like, wow, things were so out of whack. I understand why you're feeling depressed and moody and your breasts hurt and all of those things, but your blood numbers looked fine. So you gotta get the foundations in line first and foremost, because what a lot of women think are hormonal symptoms are actually high adrenaline, HPA axis dysfunction, neurotransmitter imbalances because their gut health is terrible. So we've got to put that into place and give it a few months of just doing all the things you know you need to be doing on a daily basis. See what shakes out. And if you're still having issues, we look at what those are. And, you know, at that point, I'm like, all right, we'll try something.
Right.
And see if this works.
Could be the boost that you need to build that resiliency. But I think a lot of these women who are entering menopause, perimenopause, it starts with stress. You know, it's amplified because their hormones are declining, and that will have an effect on their stress resiliency. But you take a look at their life, and they've been stressed for the past 20 years. You know, whether it's family or health issues, or, you know, parents getting older. I mean, the list
modern,
and
a lot of just modern lifestyles too.
Yes.
We
fast-paced cultures.
We live very different lifestyles than our grandparents and great-grandparents. Now, they had their own set of stressors, you know, no doubt. Their stressors are very different than our stressors, but I think our stressors are probably a death by 1,000 cuts type of scenario. Right. You know, they were hoping that their farm, you know, that it would rain, you know, or some type of famine didn't happen. Or now we're just, it's, the stressors are being just thrown at us constantly. So yes, stress is a big one, and that is the hardest one.
It is, because people will often say, "Well, I don't feel." I hear this all the time. I'm like, "It is I already know your symptoms are all pointing towards nervous system dysregulation." It's like, well, I don't feel stressed, but if you've been in this state for such a long time, and maybe your cortisol is depleted, and you're not going to feel that adrenaline like you maybe would in some stressful states. It's like you don't feel stressed, but doesn't mean there's not stressors in your life.
Well, you consider it normal. So there's a lot of people who are in this fight or flight mode, and they're experiencing some things, but they're also ignoring it because they think it's just normal.
Yeah.
And your body could be in a place where it's like the body is very resilient, and it will adapt, and it will keep adapting until it can't adapt anymore, and then that is not a good place to be, because that's a big hole that you have to dig yourself out of. And just because you feel like the things you're doing are good and helpful and what you're supposed to do doesn't mean they're not also stressful. I know a lot of people who are doing good things for the Lord. They're trying to be, you know, be like Jesus, do good things, right? We're going to go, whatever the ministry is, they're doing good things, but maybe it's not the good things God wants them to be focused on. And these people are stressed out, and I see them as my patients. They're in the ministry, part of big churches, leading, you know, certain small groups, and just spending all their time working for the Lord, and they are done, and they've got all kinds of hormonal symptoms, and it is no surprise.
Yeah.
And they want to do hormone testing. I'm like, it doesn't. I know your hormone's going to be a mess, but it's not going to change what we do.
Right. That's a tough balance too, because, you know, sometimes seeing those numbers is what people need to make that step, that change. Because people told me all the time, you know, you're in the season, you have so many stressors going on, but it took me seeing, wow, I am in a completely depleted state but I was like, something has to change. So it did help, but at the same time, you know, if money's on the line or other factors on the line, it's like doing these things will not change what we do if we have lab
I don't care what it comes back as.
Yeah.
Because labs aren't perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And especially when it comes to evaluating the HPA axis, one test, it can give you some data, but I need to know, what did it look like 6 months ago or prior to that? Where are we on this progression of HPA axis dysfunction? A snapshot can give us a little bit of idea, and typically it's, again, not a surprise to me. But I will order them for people just so they can see
it.
Like, I'm not lying here. Yeah. You know, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Right.
I've been here, not my first rodeo.
Right. Yes. People just love the labs, which I love the labs too.
Yeah,
they're so helpful. But like you said, you know, the foundations that you're going to be recommending when you know the state that they're in, you know the symptoms they're experiencing. Sometimes you do not need the lab to tell you what action steps. And moving a little bit different direction, talking about hormones. Hormones are definitely also influenced by gut health.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit why gut health can be such a critical player in weight loss resistance.
So gut health impacts everything. I don't care what your condition is. If you're having trouble losing weight, you're depressed, you're anxious, you've got diabetes, some skin issues, you've got to start with gut health always, because it is such a huge part of your immune system, which is mediating, you know, lots of different factors. But the microbes that are residing within your gut, they have such an influence on your metabolism, your food cravings. They affect your endocrine system, neurotransmitter levels, you know, your sleep. There's nothing they don't affect. And all of these things are going to impact your ability to lose weight, either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
And so and I know a lot of times we will start people like, well, I'm not really having any, you know, I have a little bit of gas and bloating and maybe occasional, you know, constipation. I don't think I need to do that. I'm like, trust me, just because you don't have any significant GI issues doesn't mean that all is well in your gut. And lo and behold, we, you know, have them start cleaning some stuff up that's obvious need to go. Lo and behold, their inflammation goes down and they start to lose a little bit of weight. Now, many of them some of them want to lose 20 pounds in 60 days. That's, sometimes that can happen for men, and I've seen it.
Sadly.
But it will happen for some women, actually, but that's typically not the case. I do know of women but they were very overweight, and so it goes fast. The closer you get to your ideal body weight, the harder it is to lose those last few pounds. And sometimes when you are working on gut health efforts, and a lot of what happens is that you see people start, a lot of their other symptoms, because there's always other symptoms, always, those go away. Those are so much better, but they're like, I haven't really lost any weight. And for me, it's like, this is probably an indication of a high toxic burden and hormonal aspects at play, because it's typically in these middle-aged women who have been around a while and have accumulated a lot of toxins. And from their histories, it usually comes across even before they have issues not losing weight. When we, you know, start addressing their gut health, I already knew they were toxic because they had so many, like, mouthful of dental amalgams. They had been getting all kinds of injections for viral illnesses, grew up in row crop farming areas exposed to glyphosate, herbicides, and pesticides, and all, which have a lot of heavy metals in them, and, you know, just eating poorly, using all kinds of toxic ingredients in their home and elsewhere, and so they just had the symptoms of it, just toxic mess, as I call them, which is common these days. And so what a lot of people don't know, and I didn't even know a long time ago about this, is, you know, your toxins are, because we weren't taught this in medical school, Nothing about this, but toxins are stored typically in your, likes to go in your fat tissues. Most of the toxins are adipose, fat-loving toxins, and so the body will store them in your fat tissues where it's, quote, safer than it is in your bloodstream, where it possibly has access to cross the blood-brain barrier and affect other organs. And so the body doesn't want to release those toxins and use that fat as fuel because it's going to be releasing toxins too. Mm-hmm. And so typically what we will have these women do is just do a very gentle and slow detox protocol. Mm-hmm. In addition to what they're already doing. Mm-hmm. We'll have things that support phase 1 and phase 2 liver support. We may have them do liver cleanses, lymphatic drainage exercises, lymphatic massages, more movement, sweating, use of saunas, and things like that. And a lot of times it works, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I feel like a lot of people just want this to happen overnight. Yes. And when you have a high toxic burden, that's not going to happen.
Right. But anything, it's not going to, when you're taking a foundational approach, it's not going to happen overnight. And people want it to, but I mean, it is.
And they get very frustrated.
Healing is a slow.
It's a slow process, but you want to do it right. And it's amazing to me. Is like these patients will come to us with this laundry list of problems. Weight is also an issue. The laundry list of problems goes away, which tells me the body is starting to function like it is supposed to. But the weight has not budged that much. They might have lost a few pounds. Just keep doing what you're doing and know that additional detoxification support is often a big key of that. And detoxification support is going to also improve the way that your hormones metabolize. Yeah. So these women are in that, hormonal depletion state as well. Yes. And so even in then we'll also have a talk about hormones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and talking about going back to gut health and even to detoxification, I think it's easy for us to hear those words and immediately jump to hear detox, and you want to jump to the quick detox drink, pill, whatever it is. Hear gut health, and you immediately want to jump. I guess I need more probiotics.
Probiotics. That's what people think of as gut health. Oh, well, what probiotic do I need to take?
Right. And I think taking a step back from that and saying, okay, if you're wanting to support gut health and your detoxification pathways, it requires nutrient-dense foods.
Yes, please.
It requires slowing down,
hydrating.
Your stress.
Yep.
Hydrating. Do you need more minerals? Stress depletes your minerals. Do you need more minerals in your water? Just going, moving. Are we moving too much? Are we moving too little? I think all those things, we think gut health and detox
is just about probiotics.
It's such a cool topic
But it's your lifestyle impacts your gut health.
It's a very simple strategy.
It's not just about probiotics and a diet for most.
Right.
A lot of it is stress.
Yes. Again,
one of the hardest ones to address with patients.
It is.
Because, sometimes you have stressors that you literally are out of your control, But
I think going off of that, even when there's stressors that are out of your control, I've heard someone recently share and say, well, I thought that once I got out of this season, I'd be better. And then the next season, something else is a family,
It's always
health
right?
stressor. And I think you have to look at that and say, it's not about how can I minimize every stress in my life? It's how can I build my stress resiliency? So I think people do not think about that when they think of stress, because it's like, well, there's always going to be toxins, there's always going to be stress, there's always going to be family issues, health issues, work issues, and it's like, okay, doing these foundations are building your body's stress resiliency.
You can handle the stressors.
Yes.
When the body is sick and out of balance, anything is just like too much.
Yeah.
And of course, we always have God. God is there. No matter the season you're going through, that's who you need to.
Yes.
That's where you need to go.
Right. And talking about, just from a biblical approach, how does the Bible, talk about health and weight gain? Is that talked about? And how can we view weight issues weight gain from a biblical perspective?
Which is interesting because there's some things that come to my mind. Gluttony, that's an easy one. You know, the Bible talks about gluttony. But, you know, I see a lot of people who aren't gluttons.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. Now, some of them are just eating too much of the bad, just inflammatory foods. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not outright gluttony,
Mm-hmm.
like my 900-pound life.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
Which is very sad.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these people have been given such terrible advice by well-meaning individuals who are working in a system ran by people who don't care about your health at all. In fact, they make more money the sicker you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an evil system. And so you've got pharmaceuticals, right?
Always impacting weight.
Always. And we know that, and some have translated the use of, you know, as being sorcery. There's mention of it, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about that. Do pharmaceuticals fall under that? I'm not here to get into a debate about that. I'm glad I had access to some when I was in the ER, that were life-saving for people. But I think depending on them to address chronic issues is always going to be a losing battle. Now, I know there are times when people get desperate and they feel like that's their only option. I've been there myself. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But know that these things are always going to happen. They might help you in the short term, but they are going to cause a lot more problems than they're helping. And you're going to wish that you had never even gone down that path. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so deceptive. Mm-hmm. So you got people who are being placed on antidepressants for so many. It's not even anxiety and depression now. It's like they're being used for all kinds of things, and most of these are notorious for causing weight issues because of what they do to your endocrine system and your gut health.
Same with birth control
and your liver and your birth control. And so there's all these people that are being placed on. Those are terrible. You have people who are going to endocrinologists because their thyroids aren't functioning well. Never address why. Just here's your Synthroid, your synthetic thyroid replacement that we know is probably not so good for the thyroid gland, making people dependent upon it. And so they're being placed on NSAIDs that cause leaky gut because their joints are hurting, and they're just, you need to work out more. Remember, how many times have the doctor said you need to work out more, eat less, and that can be a horrible advice for somebody who is stressed out.
Right. There's plenty of cases where people have gone to the doctor and it's high cholesterol and they're like, change your diet, move more, and then they come back and it's like, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I changed my diet, I'm moving more, nothing's changing, my cholesterol's not changing, my weight
hasn't changed.
Isn't changing.
I've even gained weight.
The doctor is still move more. It's like the same response, just move more, it'll fix everything, not considering other factors, medications at play, stressors at play.
Never consider other factors.
Yeah.
Never. Your doctor is not asking.
Right.
Come on. Let's get serious here. So, and in fact, the advice of work out more, if you do that on a body that is already stressed and has significant HPA axis dysfunction, boy, you're just asking to gain more weight. And then restricting your calories often is just a stressor to the body, and so these people end up eating salads and chicken. Mm-hmm. Salads and chicken.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing. There's just not a lot. I'm not saying there's no nutrient dense foods being consumed,
right?
Which is what the
body
body
if it is working, which sometimes you see it is.
It is, yeah.
Counting their macros, they're in a calorie deficit, they're moving more, they're losing weight. What dysfunction else is going on? When you're eating those foods, only focusing on macros, not focusing on nutrient density. What other dysfunction is happening in the body because of that?
Yeah. They want to view food as something very, very simple. It's just carbs, fat, protein. That's all it is. And it's so much more than that.
It's information. It's micronutrients.
Yeah. It shouldn't be complicated.
No.
It
is simple.
It is simple, but it's not.
You can oversimplify it with just tracking macros.
Or calories. The calorie counting.
Yeah.
Weight Watchers, I know people who have been on Weight Watchers 10 times.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is not working.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Counting calories, it just simply does not work. For calories and calories, we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Just is a losing strategy.
And we know that Scripture, says your body is a temple of the Lord,
Right.
and that should have a lot of weight to it.
It should, but we got some
yes,
serious weight issues in the church.
exactly,
And again,
serious
it's like, why?
feeding issues. I mean, you think of church snacks and church meals that are provided. They're never good, especially in the South.
I know, I don't even want to pray about nourishing my body with this food. There's nothing nourishing about this food.
About it, yeah.
This is poison.
Yeah.
And I know I come in my church and people are like, they don't even want to be looking at what they're eating, and I'm not there to judge, but at the same time, I'm like, it's poison.
Yeah. You're not helping, and you're choosing not to glorify God with your body, making those decisions and, living in that unhealthy lifestyle, not focusing on those habits. But we also mentioned before we talked about this episode there are the other extremes as well, of people who are, you mentioned earlier, doing a lot for the church. So they're skipping meals. They're not eating their regular meal times.
Or living on coffee.
Yes. Living on caffeine, living on fast food.
Sugary.
Because that's all they
coffee
have
drinks.
access to. Yes.
Because all those things are the rage in churches, right? The coffee
Yes.
bar.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole other issue on its own.
Yeah.
We won't get into that. But,
yeah. Don't send me any hate emails, please.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm saying this because I love you guys.
Yeah. But like you said before, you can be doing good things in ministry and still, you're struggling with weight, you're struggling with high toxic burden because you're not taking care of yourself.
No, you're not at all. And I tell people when they're like, and I know people have budgets, the food costs are crazy. I don't even know how people are surviving right now with families when I see the cost of food. And so they're doing the best they can. And so I just I'm like, do what you know is right, and then let God take care of the rest. And if you're trying to do what's right in the food department for you and your family.
Right.
And
don't make it an additional stress.
No. And people automatically assume that it's so expensive to eat healthy. And that I'm just not going to let you get away with that excuse.
There's too many cost breakdowns that you can't.
I've done it. Paul and I have done it. We used to cook. We'd cook a meal and we would break down how much it cost per serving. And this is less than fast food.
Significantly. I mean, you can't go to McDonald's anymore without probably spending $12.
Yeah.
A single meal. Same with Chick-fil-A. Same with all other fast food. If you go somewhere a little bit nicer than that, you're going to be spending closer to 15 to 20 a person. So,
and nutrient-dense food is much more satisfying, creates a lot more satiety, and you end up not having any food cravings, and you end up eating less food when your food is nutrient-dense.
Yes.
So, yes, go for the beef and the animal proteins, the high-quality animal proteins, and organic when it makes sense to go organic. Right. And sometimes it might mean you need to get you some chickens in the backyard. Eggs are expensive.
In plenty of suburban neighborhoods, and they still have chickens in their backyard.
Yes.
So it's possible to do. Even
our chickens are
on land
producing like crazy, but they have access to a pasture too. So that saves us a lot of money on eggs.
Did you hear, actually, this is off topic, there's an egg shortage right now.
I know, I heard that. Yeah, because
we realized that when we went to the store.
Bird flu.
There was no eggs. None.
You know why?
Yeah.
They're killing the chickens because of bird flu.
Now there's no eggs.
And now there's no eggs. So the chickens are some of the easiest things you can do. And I'm still, again, I know I talk about this a lot, but join in with other like-minded family, friends. Buy yourself a cow.
Yes.
And divide it out. Get yourself an elk tag. Go kill an elk.
Yeah.
And that provides a year's worth of meat for a family. And it is some of the best meat that you can get.
And you can truly eat, from nose to tail. Some people may not love all of that compasses that, but there are a lot of things that you can still use, like the bones for making bone broth.
Right.
And using some of the organs to blending it with your meat and getting,
all
those additional nutrients. So you're not just getting ground beef.
It just means that you're going to have to reevaluate what you're doing in your life. Most of us are just living lives of convenience, and it's backfiring spectacularly. So you may have to start cooking more.
Yes.
Yeah. You just might.
Yeah.
Simplify your life so that you do have time to cook.
Right.
Instead of being at a ball game every night of the week.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind that people are existing in that state. And you look at them and you're like, this is not healthy for you.
It's further
I'm just worried about people. I know your child loves to do this, but is it good for the family?
Yeah.
And it's not most often.
Yeah. I'm talking about, maybe some weight loss hacks that people might use. We talked about some weight
Thank you
loss.
for kicking me on track,
With the bird flu and the eggs, we're not a little more topic there. But we talked a lot about biohacks last podcast on weight loss. But we did not mention intermittent fasting. I think that is a
hot topic
that
it's kind of calmed down, but it's still around.
Calmed down, but there's a lot of people that are doing it, especially women, who think that is appropriate, and they might be getting
some results
from it. But let's talk a little about, does that work? Why does that work? And is it right for everyone to do?
It is biblical, but I feel like the people who are doing it were definitely not living in this type of atmosphere. And a lot of people are doing it when their HPA axis dysfunction is severe, and that is going to backfire. And I see it happen all the time. People have come to me like, I tried intermittent fasting, I didn't lose a pound, and I feel worse. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, because you were not a good candidate for it. Some people do great on it. Men tend to do great on it, but I've seen it even backfire on men. I know of several people who have reported great success with it. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it is certainly not for everybody.
And it can further cause weight gain.
Yes.
If you are not in a good state, and that's why you have to assess. And maybe talking to a practitioner or provider of like, how do I know if this is a good option for me? Because it's not for everyone, and when you do it in the wrong state, it will further increase your symptoms.
I think wearing a continuous glucose monitor I think provides some fantastic data for people, because people will wear these when they're fasting, and their blood sugars are dropping and then going sky high. And then dropping and going sky, so they got these peaks and valleys. So that is a sign of stress. Your body you're stressing your body by doing that. Because anytime when your blood sugars drop, your liver is supposed to break down glycogen stores, release glucose, get you back up to those levels. And in a non-stress state, that happens really easily. But if you have a person who has been in a stress state for a long time, that does not happen very well.
Oh yeah, my blood sugar's huge. I remember in high school, which I had no idea about blood sugar, and I was tiny and all growing up, but I was just not hungry, which was other signs of dysfunction going on in the morning. So I would probably intermittent fast unintentionally, for 15, 16 hours and not even know that I was doing it. It was not intentional. But yet I would pass out often. I would feel I didn't know it was blood sugar issues, but I would feel those blood sugar crashes that would leave me lightheaded with continuous headaches. And I think, that was me younger, but it's the same for older, my age and beyond. Now, when you do things, maybe accidentally intermittent fasting or intentionally intermittent fasting, you can still have those biological effects and shifts in the body of blood sugar.
Oh, I did. I went on a little 3-day retreat with God, and people at my church were fasting alongside me. I fasted, and it did not go well. And I felt a lot of guilt about it. I'm like, why can I not do this? But it wasn't just hunger pains. It was like, I felt like I was going to throw up. My head was hurting. I felt dizzy, and I'm like, I told my mom, and I'm like, she's like, maybe fasting from food is not what you need to be fasting from.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit instantly said, I need you to fast from negative thoughts.
Right.
And I should have known better. My body was already so severely stressed from not sleeping. Adding that component to it did not go well at all.
Mm-hmm.
And God knows that.
Yes.
He knows my heart. He knew what I was trying to do. Didn't mean I still, prayed and communed with God. But, and I was able to do it a lot better, not feeling like I was going to vomit the whole time.
Right. That's very true, too. I remember feeling that way when my college church did a, group fast certain time. And I remember I was in the middle of my functional medicine training, so I was knew the state that I was in. I knew that fasting was not the answer, but it was some level of guilt of I need to be fasting. But at the same time, I knew that if I fasted, I wouldn't have been able to spend any time with the Lord,
right?
To get any learning, any knowledge from Him, any peace from Him, because it would have affected my body a lot at that time. So I think you have to take an inward approach and think about what is right for your body in that season.
Yeah. I do think most people can handle a 14-hour overnight fast. You don't need to be eating right before most people do not need to be eating right up to the time you're going to bed. And I think most people can handle a 14-hour fast and probably do quite well, meaning you're eating, stop eating around, 6 or 7 in the evening.
Yes.
Because I think breakfast is probably a good thing for most people, especially high protein breakfast. I think it, from what I see, people do better that way. But for those, again, who are stressed, even that can be too much. And they need that protein-rich snack that has a little bit of carbs to keep their blood sugar stable overnight, because they're just dipping down too low at night because their body's stressed.
Yeah, and there's really great ways you can handle that without, eating a bowl of cereal.
That's too much.
Further cause
Yeah.
your blood sugar crash, making sure you have fat and a carb or a protein and a carb to ensure that balanced blood sugar throughout the day. But I mean, I wear an Oura ring and it tracks my heart rate throughout the night, as well as a lot of other things, which is a great tool to use. But every single time that I eat a snack or a dessert or
late at night,
a later meal, it will tell me in the morning, you ate a later meal. It knows. It's like your resting heart rate lowered last night. You're not as ready for your day because it was like you might have eaten a later meal or snack. And I'm like, it's having the data to see that. So it really does affect.
And that's why I like these things like that, or the Oura ring, the continuous glucose monitors. Great tools.
Yeah.
Great tools.
Yeah.
What else have we?
I mean, we just want to cover.
There's another page.
Yeah. We'll hit one last topic, which is just insulin resistance, because that is so connected to almost everything that we've talked about today, of menopause, hormones, gut health, fasting, blood sugar, all those things. Insulin resistance is really tied to all of those things and is at the root of a lot of what people are experiencing right now with inflammation. So what is insulin resistance, and maybe talk about how is that even connected to weight, and then we can also just move into some simple steps of I know I'm insulin resistant.
What do I do?
What do I do? I know it's affecting my cholesterol. I know it's affecting my inflammation. And just a quote that I have from one of our Live Well boot camp PowerPoints, talking about obesity, muscle mass, weight gain, especially hormonal related, but it says obesity is a symptom of unhealthy skeletal muscle. When skeletal muscle is sedentary, it develops dysfunction. While you don't see it, dysfunction occurs first within the skeletal muscle before there is a diabetes and insulin resistance diagnosis. And so moving into that, let's just kind of talk about insulin resistance. And why that, how it's connected to muscle, and what are those things?
That's so insulin resistance occurs for it. Just the insulin is not, the receptor is not functioning like it should when insulin is present. So it's not letting insulin into the cell to do its job. And so it takes more and more insulin to get the same effect. And insulin has a very high insulin levels. It's not a good state. It's going to affect a lot of your blood pressure, inflammation in general. You're not going to lose weight when you have a lot of insulin going in the body, because insulin is, you're just not. And there's lots of things that impact that. Stress is a big one. Certain nutrient deficiencies. Vitamin D plays a huge role in insulin sensitivity at the cell site. And most people, I will tell you right now, from what I'm seeing, are severely vitamin D deficient. It's the time of the year, you know, but even then I see people in the middle of summer who have vitamin D levels of 40 or 30. And it's like, this is summertime. Well, how is that even happening? And so what you mentioned about skeletal muscle is very interesting, because we know that older people start having diabetes, right? And it's because they've lost their muscle mass for a variety of reasons. Hormonal issues are at play too, you know, but they're not doing anything anymore. They've lost their muscle mass. So one of the things I always get my patients to do when they have insulin, what I feel are insulin issues, is you've got to start weight training, because most of them aren't. They haven't done it since they played football in high school. And so women, men, and I'm not saying you have to do CrossFit, but you just 3 or 4 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes.
Add resistance to your workouts.
Yeah, and there's some great people I follow on YouTube, and I do their workouts. But that's what you have to do. You have to start building muscle again, and that often will bring down those A1Cs. It's amazing to see what can happen with just that alone, and then get more sun. That I've seen people have better A1Cs with just their vitamin D levels go up, their A1Cs come down. High toxic burdens are another one too that can play. I see a lot of diabetes patients who have high levels of lead and mercury or arsenic, because they're doing all the other stuff. They're lifting weights, they're getting the sun, but they've had these huge exposures over their lifetime. Some are very evident, and some had no clue. And then when you start detoxing them, their insulin, their diabetes starts to improve greatly. And I'm thinking of one right now.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, that worked great. You know, so that's again, you know, we measure fasting insulin levels. I often will get A1Cs on patients to see where they are, because it's good to have that information, and they're pretty cheap labs too to get, especially with us, because we don't upcharge our labs. But don't go straight for Manjaro or diabetes meds. That is not addressing the root cause of your diabetes and insulin resistance.
And even while you're addressing the root cause, I'm not sure your thoughts or opinion on certain herbs, but things like berberine.
Berberine is a one
can be a great tool, almost just as effective as a diabetes medication. But there's no profit from it, so that's why
I know berberine.
Yes. So while you're
cheap, easy to get,
working on balancing your blood sugar, maybe eating fat, protein, carbs, incorporating things like muscle health, movement after you eat a meal, or if you're eating
and watching your carbs in general.
Yes.
A lot of people are eating too many carbs, and your insulin levels.
That's because it's recommended. I mean, the American dietary recommendations, it's like 60% your
that's ridiculous
carbs, and they recommend that's like pasta and bread. So,
which turn straight sugar. Yeah. Like you can tell when you put something in your mouth and you hold it there, it tastes sweet. Yeah, because those enzymes are breaking it down, and it's turning it to sugar. Yeah. So a lot of people just need to cut out the carbs. Significant, not completely, but a lot.
And replacing them with complex carbs, like the non-starchy veggies, or even replacing them with carbs that have great nutrients, like potatoes, sweet potatoes.
Well, better be careful with the sweet potatoes.
With blood sugar, yes.
when I was wearing my continuum, I ate a sweet potato, and it was.
You hear that a lot.
And it was covered with butter too. And it went straight up, and I could feel it. I thought I was having like low blood sugar. Yeah. And it was like over 200 from a sweet potato.
With something like with a meat
with butter, covered in butter. So it was. I did not have protein or anything with it. It was just a sweet potato with some butter. Yeah. And I was like, my goodness. Yeah. So you can see how like combining foods affects your blood sugar.
Yeah, it's a great tool.
But I know that potatoes and rice are going to shoot me straight up. Because I was talking about, I love City Silo.
Me too.
Love that place. But there's a bowl that I get with a little bit of chicken, but it's got like sweet potatoes
and rice.
Yes.
And beans, I think, too.
And just
yes.
blood sugar straight up.
Yeah.
But I will also tell you this: there's been times when it didn't, and I was in a less stressful state.
That's an important reminder too when you're eating. Breathe.
Yeah.
Calm down. Because like you said, that stressful state heightened the blood sugar response that was already gonna happen. That was already gonna happen with food. It just maximized it. So what would happen? That's why I could see.
It was probably a gut health issue too, because gut health has a huge role in insulin responses.
Yeah.
And so the times when that same thing would not shoot my blood sugar up, I was a much calmer.
Yes.
I was sleeping better, and I was handling those foods much better. But right now, like when I'm not sleeping and I'm feeling the stress, carbs are my enemy. They make me feel worse.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it is. I have to have a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have to have a little bit.
You have to know your body.
You do. You have to know your body.
Where carbs are the thing that's keeping me going right now, and so knowing your body, knowing blood sugar balancing tips, but also just leaning into what does your body need.
Yeah.
It's really important.
You just have to pay attention. Just knowing your body, and that I can't know it for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of just paying more attention to it. And that's why when people I will have them monitor their blood pressures, their heart rates, their blood sugars, just the things that we're doing, how is their body responding. And there's a lot of good tools out there that can help you start putting the pieces together.
Definitely. Yeah. And we have a lot of tools. We've covered a lot of information today. A lot of fun topics, though.
We hit on a lot of different ones, and each one of the things we've talked about, it could be a week-long series.
It could.
If you really wanted to just take a deep dive
into
there are people that's all they talk about is insulin resistance, and other people that's all they do is talk about intermittent fasting.
We hit the high points, we hit the foundations, and I hope.
But I'm glad that we talk about it all because it would be so much easier for me as a functional medicine doctor and as a business to focus on one thing. But it's never one thing.
No.
And that's what Paul and I were like. Paul's like, man, we should just focus on, it'd be a lot easier if we just focused on gut health.
Yeah.
I'm like, but Paul,
it's not just
gut health.
Never just gut health.
And I said, he's like, I know it.
Yeah. The business side of him.
Yeah, the business side is, it would be a much easier business, much less stressful, but I'm like, we have to incorporate it all, Paul, to truly help people.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know.
Yes. Which you have done through a couple different programs. Live Well.
Live Well's a great place to start.
Everything that we talk about foundation-wise, it's covered.
It is. It's a great place to start. And if you look at it, you can go online. It's a 3-month course and planner. A lot of people are like, I am so overwhelmed. And I'm like, first of all, you don't have to use every tool that's in here. But if you can't spare 20 minutes a day,
it's a toolbox.
If you can't spare 20 minutes a day to sit down, talk with God about your health journey, that is a sign of a much bigger problem. And now I know why you're needing something.
Right. Yeah.
Things have gotten so out of control if you cannot find 20 minutes in your day.
And we now have an opportunity for accountability within the Live Well, which will start a new group coaching program in March. So if you're interested.
Yeah, because you're leading one.
Yes, right now.
Right now.
Yes, I'm leading one right now, and it's been just a great experience. Flooding with, this group of just, they're finally getting accountability. And we take things very slow, A lot of times the book can be overwhelming, but we're just going to see if we can pick it up and start with those small daily habits. So if accountability is more what you're needing, alongside of that, we have a new group that will be starting in March if you're interested in that. As well as...
I'm so glad for it. I mean, the feedback's been good. People love knowing that there's other people going through these same things and have the same questions.
Just to talk about it in a community setting where someone else is saying, I'm going through this season, I'm going through this season. How can we encourage each other and give each other wisdom and advice and sometimes it's like
That's faith-based
Yes.
too. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah, God's at the center of what we talk about.
Yeah.
So
It has to be, as far as I'm concerned, God has to be at the center of all of this. And when He is, things start to change.
Yeah.
That's what we cannot forget. Is I know we've just discussed a lot, but at the end of the day, God, your relationship with God is still
Yes.
way more important than any of those things.
Yeah.
Those things will, seek first
Mm-hmm.
the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all of these things will be added to you.
Yeah. That's great.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and we didn't ramble too much, or I didn't ramble too much.
Hey, I got off
You
on
never,
that
I know,
trail
but you don't
today.
ramble. I can just,
Yes.
because there's so much that I want to,
Yeah.
so much I've
Yes.
experienced and with patients, and I just go off on tangents. So we will have some more interesting things to talk about, I'm sure.
Yes.
And maybe you heard some things that maybe just reinforced what you already knew. Maybe you heard some new things. And if you feel like you need help beyond the book, a
Yes.
group coaching session, please feel free to visit our website and work with me and some of the awesome coaches that I have.
I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxils and Insulin, Promax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac, Ultram, Zocor, Zipro, Prozac, dopamine, Demerol, Lexapro, Tylenol, Vicodin, Lyrica, Lipitor,